In this video and the next video, I want to talk to you about the history of what's called redlining in the United States, and specifically here in Rochester. It's a practice around urban planning and making loans and supporting neighborhoods that started happening 80 or 90 years ago. We stopped doing it 50 or 60 years ago, but the decisions that were made back then are really still with us right now. So it's a really interesting story, kind of about why things are the way they are in Rochester and in the United States in general. So for those of you who have taken US history or are taking it right now, you might remember or be able to think about some of these topics. So this is something that started back during the Great Depression. So what was happening during the Great Depression? Well, there was not a lot of economic activity going on. The only people who had a lot of money was the federal government. And so what the federal government decided to do was to make a whole bunch of plans, and that plan was called the New Deal. And the idea was that if we hire lots and lots of people to do work that kind of does good, first of all, we make the United States better. And second of all, we've got all kinds of people making money again. And hopefully that'll get the engine of our economy started again. So that was the philosophy of the New Deal, to kind of spend our way out of the Great Depression. One of the organizations that was started by the New Deal was a government organization called the FHA, for Fair Housing Administration, still with us today, still an important part of home buying. The goal of the FHA was to make it easy for people to buy houses. So it helped people to find houses that they wanted to buy, and it helped make the mortgages go smoothly so that banks would feel more comfortable lending and people would feel more comfortable making that purchase, and lots of people would own houses, which would help grow wealth, and it would also help the communities build up, because if you own the house in your neighborhood, you care how your neighborhood is doing, because that's the value of your house. And it's a place where you're going to be living for an extended period of time. So there are a lot of reasons why we like to encourage people to own houses. The problem with all of this really wonderful sounding story was that the FHA went into this with some wrong-headed and super racist ideas. The first thing they decided to do was they said, let's take an inventory of all of the neighborhoods in major cities in the United States, and we're going to locate places where people should want to live, places that are going to hold their value and become more valuable in time, because those are the kinds of places we want people to be buying and that we want banks to be lending. So here are some of the assumptions they made. They thought that if a neighborhood had Black people or a large immigrant population, that was a trash neighborhood, right? Because nobody, white people, would want to buy into that kind of neighborhood. And so because of that, there was a lot less home buying going on in Black and immigrant neighborhoods. The second decision they made was they decided that a neighborhood that had ethnic diversity, more than one nationality, ethnicity going on in there, was another bad idea, because that was going to stoke some racial disharmony. So if you had a neighborhood with, let's say, Polish immigrants in this side and Italian immigrants on this side, well, why don't we build a great big highway right down the middle to keep these two communities from bumping heads against each other? The third decision they made was that houses that were old, like built back in the 19th century, again, those are trash. Nobody wants to live in an old house like that. We should buy a modern new house. And so that's the kind of thing that that people will want to live in. Those are the kinds of houses that are going to maintain and raise their values. So in the next video, I'm going to show you the map that they came up with of Rochester, of how they graded all of the neighborhoods, and we can have some idea of the consequences of those decisions that they made that we can still even feel today.